The story: imagine a city 2,000 years ago. It's 4 a.m. Every house is dark, and every person is deep in sleep. But in one house, a man stands up, quietly opens the door, and walks out into the freezing, pitch-black wilderness. That man was Jesus. He didn't do this for an audience. There was no one awake to watch. He did it because he knew that if he didn't win the morning, he couldn't win the day. The real talk: most people's lives are a mess because they start their day in defense mode. You are woken up by a loud alarm, bombarded by phone notifications, and stressed by emails before you've even brushed your teeth. You are letting the world dictate your mood. Self-discipline starts with a preemptive strike. It's about taking back your territory before the world wakes up to steal it. If you can't protect the first 30 minutes of your day from your phone and other people's demands, you have no right to expect success in your career. Discipline isn't a punishment, it's your off-grid power source. Handle yourself before you try to handle the world. Jesus had been in the desert for 40 days without food. His body was screaming for calories. At his weakest moment, a voice suggested a shortcut. Why suffer? Just turn these stones into bread. It was the ultimate easy button. He was starving, but he looked at the temptation and flatly refused. He chose the pain of hunger over the compromise of his mission. We live in a world of stones turned into bread. It's the instant dopamine from a mindless scroll, the junk food you eat because you're bored, and the buy now pay later trap. Too many people let their biological impulses be their boss. If it feels good, you do it. Self-discipline is the ability to look at a cheap win and say, I have a bigger war to fight. Every time you say no to a small, useless craving, you are saying yes to a massive, future victory. Stop being a puppet to your impulses. Real power is being able to stand in front of what you want now and choose what you want most. A storm is raging in the middle of the night. Peter sees Jesus walking on the water and decides to jump out of the boat. For a few seconds, it's a miracle. Peter is actually standing on the waves. But then, he makes a fatal mistake. He looks away from Jesus and starts staring at the height of the waves and the strength of the wind. The moment his focus shifted, he began to sink. Your life goes where your focus goes. If you focus on the waves, the criticism, the bad news, and the what-ifs, you will drown in anxiety every single time. Discipline is not just about what you do, it's about where you keep your eyes. The world is designed to distract you. It wants you to stare at the chaos so you forget you are capable of walking on water. To achieve anything great, you have to develop tunnel vision. You lock onto the goal and treat everything else as background noise. If you lose control of your attention, you lose control of your life. Stop looking at the waves and start looking at the destination. Before the miracles and the crowds, Jesus spent 30 years in a dusty carpenter's shop. There were no cameras, no applause, and no likes, just the repetitive sound of a plane smoothing out wood. For 3 decades, he focused on the grain of the timber and the precision of the cut. He wasn't famous yet, but he was becoming a master. He treated every table and every beam as if it were a masterpiece. Don't obsess over being an overnight success. Real discipline happens in the dark, when nobody is watching and there's no immediate reward. It's the grind of doing the boring, repetitive tasks until they are perfect. If you are sloppy with the small, invisible details of your work, you will fold under the pressure of the big stage. Stability in public comes from being ruthless with your standards in private. If you want to build something massive, start by perfecting the small wood in front of you today. Imagine the chaos. Thousands of people are pushing and shoving, begging Jesus for a miracle. The need is endless, and the pressure to help everyone is massive. Any nice guy would have stayed until he collapsed from exhaustion. But Jesus did something shocking. He looked at the needy crowd, said no, and walked away into the mountains. He wasn't being cruel, he was being disciplined. He knew that if he tried to please everyone, he would fail his ultimate mission. You are not a savior, and your energy is a finite resource. Real discipline is the courage to set a cold, hard boundary when everyone else is demanding your time. If you can't say no to a good opportunity, you will never have the space to say yes to a great one. Most people spend their lives working for others because they are too afraid of the conflict that comes with a boundary. If you don't ruthlessly protect your focus, the world will happily steal it from you. Stop trying to be liked and start being effective. The scene is the Garden of Gethsemane. It is the middle of the night, and the air is thick with the scent of olive trees and impending doom. Jesus is not calm, he is in agony. He is sweating drops of blood, and his soul is crushed by the weight of what is coming. Every natural instinct in his human body is screaming for him to run, to hide, to escape the physical and emotional torture of the next 12 hours. He pleads for a different way, an easier path. But then, in the most profound moment of self-mastery in human history, he utters the words, "Not my will, but yours be done." He stops arguing with reality and submits his comfort to his calling. He didn't feel like going to the cross, but he went anyway. We need to stop talking about doing what you love. That is advice for children and hobbyists. If you only work when you feel inspired, or only exercise when you feel energetic, or only plan when you feel creative, you are a slave to your moods. You are not a leader, you are a passenger in your own life. The highest level of self-discipline is reached when you are at your lowest point, when you are exhausted, bored, or genuinely afraid, and you still put yourself in the chair and do the work. Discipline is the cold, hard decision to do what is necessary precisely when you hate it the most. Success is often built on a mountain of tasks that you didn't want to do. It's the late-night accounting, the difficult conversation you've been avoiding, and the repetitive training that feels like a grind. Most people quit in their Gethsemane moments because they mistake their negative emotions for a signal to stop. But a high performer knows that their emotions are irrelevant to their obligations. You don't need motivation to finish. You need a commitment that is stronger than your feelings. When you can force yourself to execute while every fiber of your being wants to quit, you have achieved true sovereignty. You are no longer a victim of your impulses. You are the architect of your destiny. Stop waiting for the right feeling and start enforcing the right action. To understand the empty tomb, you have to understand the cross. There was no resurrection without the crucifixion. There was no victory without the absolute end of the old life. Jesus didn't just survive his mission, he finished it. He allowed the old chapter to be completely closed so that a new, immortal reality could begin. The empty tomb is not just a miracle. It is the ultimate evidence of delayed gratification. It is the proof that if you are willing to sacrifice the present comfort of the now, you can inherit a future that is beyond your wildest imagination. The essence of self-discipline is a daily execution. Every single morning, you are faced with a choice. Will you let your lazy, distracted, and average self run the day, or will you kill that version of yourself to let someone better emerge? Most people live in a state of living death. They are too afraid to sacrifice their current habits, so they never grow. They want the resurrection, the money, the health, the status, without the crucifixion, the sacrifice, the pain, the discipline. But life doesn't work that way. You cannot become who you are meant to be while remaining who you are. You must be willing to ruthlessly execute the mediocre you. You kill the part of you that wants to hit snooze, the part of you that wants to scroll for 3 hours, and the part of you that settles for good enough. This is the law of the seed. It must fall into the ground and die before it can produce a harvest. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you are burying a lower version of yourself. And from that burial, a stronger, more resilient, and truly invincible version of you begins to rise. A finished life is one where you didn't leave your potential on the table. It is a life where you pushed through the pain of the end to reach the glory of the beginning. Stop trying to protect your comfort. Your comfort is the cage that keeps you small. Sacrifice the you of today for the you of tomorrow. When you finally kill your excuses, your results will finally come to life. The empty tomb is waiting, but you have to walk through the gate of discipline to get there.